Hi, this is an introduction to an event which I am holding. It's completely online. It's challenging false allegations in the family courts. False allegations destroy people's lives, destroy people's relationships with their children, and you need to challenge them if they're false. So, this is an introduction to a course that I am holding in June, actually on June the 20th. 2026. It will be repeated again every 7 or 8 months or so. I will be holding it again. So let me just go into an introduction and overview of what is included in this event. So before I start that, I just confirm with you, I am a Mackenzie friend. I have been a Mackenzie friend for 25 years. During that process, I did a law degree. I qualified as a barrister. I am still a Mackenzie friend. I have a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, and therefore I know what I'm talking about. So the course objectives. When you have false allegations made against you, you have several choices. You can let it go, you can fight it. You really do need to fight it, but there are reasons maybe why you wouldn't want to. So I will talk about that. I'm going to go through how to challenge false allegations. You can't just turn up in court and say, it wasn't me, I didn't do it. How can I, and there's a question that I get asked ever such a lot, how can I prove that something didn't happen when it didn't happen? It's part of the course. You'll learn how to do it. You need to understand the court process. There is a process in place. That process isn't going to change because you don't like it. It's not going to change because you want it to work a different way. It will work the way that the process works, and you need to fit in with that process. Do the things that you need to do when you need to do them. You need to understand how allegations are dealt with by the court. At the very beginning, so many people are served a non-molestation order and they're outraged about it, they're upset, angry. Yes, of course, I understand all of that. But you need to understand how these things work. And that's part of the court process. You need to respond strategically to those allegations. Sometimes allegations are ridiculous and they're not going to make any difference, and therefore they aren't worth as much attention as the very serious ones. And there are ways and means that you need to go about this whole process. You can't just throw yourself into it and not deal with it the right way. You need to analyse each allegation in turn. Allegations are all different. There's a pattern. You can certainly see a pattern when you look at a range of cases, but there are separate allegations, and you have to deal with specifically what has been said about you. You need to use evidence. It's one of the most widely misunderstood things that I see in the family courts. Evidence is evidence. There are different types of evidence, different ways that you use that evidence, different ways you get that evidence. You can get it wrong, you can get it right. I'll show you how to get it right. Writing your statement. It is a key document. It's your story, your version of events. It has to be done the right way. You really do need to get that right. And then you're going to have a fact-finding hearing. A fact-finding hearing, very similar to a children's final hearing, similar to a financial final hearing. They follow a very, very similar process. It's called a fact-finding hearing, where the judge is going to find the facts. Here is an allegation, here's a denial. Who is telling me the truth? That's what happens in a fact-finding hearing. Courtroom strategy. I see so many people mess up in court. Men, women, everybody does it. They argue with the judge, they interrupt, they do all sorts of things that you shouldn't do. So I'm going to go through all of that on this course, explain how you deal with yourself in court. And there are going to be some practical examples so that you can work out how to deal with different situations while we're going through the agenda for the course. And there'll be a Q&A session. So you can ask questions. Sometimes it gets a bit difficult when people are getting complicated about a specific allegation, but I'll come on to that because there's other help available for that. But questions and answers, I will certainly deal with people's questions and answers. So who is this for, and what are you going to gain from this course? In 2025, there were 51,500 applications for contact with children in the family courts. At the same time, there were almost 37,000 non-molestation orders. There's a link in both of those. You want to see your children? I'm going to stop you. I'll apply for a non-molestation order. It happens all the time. And I'm not saying it happens in every case, because allegations, obviously, sometimes they're true. A lot of the time, they're not true. And I am only dealing with the false allegations. Anyone who is falsely accused could do with attending this lecture to understand how to deal with it and deal with it properly. Anyone helping somebody who's been falsely accused, you really, somebody that you love, somebody you know, somebody you're friends with, if you can help them, you can help them. You will get an understanding of the process. As I've said, that process will be followed regardless. You need to understand that process to know where you fit into it, how you fit into it, and what you have to do along that path. You need to break each allegation down into manageable points, and I'll talk about how a lawyer will look at this. When I did my barrister training, it was all about presenting a case in court, and that's what I will show you how to do. You will learn how to prepare your response to that allegation, whether it's in your statement, orally in the hearing, with cross-examination. There you go, in the hearing. How do you deliver that response? So you've got to take the allegation, find out in your mind how you're going to deal with that, and then put your response together and then present that in the hearing. Knowledge is king. They say knowledge is king, and it is. You need to know how these things work in order to be able to fix them. You've got a problem here that needs fixing. We can fix it, providing the allegation is false, of course, and providing you listen to what I'm telling, listen to how I'm telling you to deal with it. And it will give you more confidence. So many people go into court petrified about what's going to happen. Am I going to say the wrong thing? And what's going to happen? Am I going to see my children? You need to be confident about how you're going to deal with this. And when you know that you've put your case together properly, analysed the allegations, prepared your response, you know that this is heading in your direction, because you know you're trying to get the judge to see the truth. So we then move on to the actual event. And how the court process works with those allegations. That's what we're dealing with. That's what we're going to cover. And for some reason, my clicker stopped working. Right, why false allegations need to be challenged. You cannot let a false allegation, something that is untrue, have such a bearing on your life that you lose or spoil your relationship with your children. It's wrong. It needs to be challenged. And you'll notice I keep talking about false allegations. I just want to make that point. This is dealing with false allegations. Jeremy Fletcher, right, it's a made-up name. If there's anybody out there called Jeremy Fletcher, I do apologise. But I found that every time I was doing training materials, I needed a name. I needed a name for him, a name for her, a name for the children. And I got worn out trying to think of names that would work. So Jeremy Fletcher, I think I'd read a book about Agincourt or something, and somebody was an archer. So Jeremy Fletcher, he is used in all of my training materials now because it's easy. His ex-wife is Kirsty, and they have 2 children. So he is the subject of this. He has allegations made against him, and that's what we're dealing with. We are helping Jeremy to get his case right in the same way that you will get your case right. His son is refusing to see him due to false allegations. False allegations from him, false allegations from the mother, however it may be. And at that point, because I've just said the word mother, I would just want to reiterate my whole ethos in all of this. False allegations are made against mothers, they're made against fathers. All of these things work in both directions. I don't have any bias in either way. If false allegations are made against you, I will help you. So in this situation, his son is refusing to see his dad for spurious reasons. We need to deal with those reasons. Whether it is a non-molestation order that has been made against Jeremy, or whether it is just within his child proceedings, it's the same process. A little bit different at the very beginning, which I'll talk about. Then it is the same process. The process of dealing with those allegations is the same. The procedure to set out a challenge, that's what we're going to cover, to show you step by step, from the very beginning to the very end, dealing with your challenge. We're looking at evidence. In his particular situation, there's evidence. Now, I could very easily have come up with lots of fantastic evidence that's going to completely destroy the case, but that isn't going to help you. So I've got some iffy evidence. I've got some bits that, well, how are we going to argue this? How are we going to deal with it? Because that's the reality of life. You don't hardly ever have very, very good evidence that just wipes the whole allegation gone. As I said, so many people say, well, how do I prove something that didn't happen? Or prove something didn't happen when it didn't happen? There's nothing there to show that it happened. That's what we're dealing with. That's what's happened to Jeremy, because that's what is important for you. He needs to write a statement. How is he going to prepare that statement? How is he going to use language to do that statement? There'll be a Scott schedule of allegations listing the allegations against him. I'll show you how to deal with that. A case theory, any time I ever do cross-examination, any time I'm going to write a submission, I do a case theory. You will find the case theory will unlock how you approach the court. It's something that barristers are taught. Barristers will always do a case theory. You need to do the same. You need to act like a lawyer. I know it's very, very difficult, but I'll show you how. None of it is, I say it's very difficult. It's difficult to get your mind around how to deal with this. None of it is difficult. I don't know quite how that fits. But we look at the cross-examination. So we come up with a case theory for each of the allegations. We come up with his cross-examination questions, and you'll see as we go through those questions why they are what they are, why those questions make a difference, and why those questions work rather than things that don't work. As well as showing you how things do work, I show you common mistakes that people make that you need to avoid. And then we have the closing submission. The closing submission is your last opportunity to tell the judge what you want them to do. It has to be right, obviously. So we then move on to mounting your challenge. How are we going to make that happen in court? How do we use your evidence or the lack of evidence, which is probably more relevant than having your evidence? Most of the time there is no evidence, but you use that fact in court. You can use that fact to your advantage. How to write your cross-examination. How to focus on what matters. There are things that matter and things that don't matter. And one of the things I very often see as you approach a final hearing, the solicitor for the other side is going to get you wound up about something that's trivial. And they will add on the pressure. You haven't done this, you haven't done that. We're going to seek costs against you. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. It takes you away from focusing on what you're trying to do. And there are important things that you must focus on. There are less important things that you can ignore. All of that I talk about. So how to behave in court. So many people behave badly in court, and I'm not messing about or anything like that, but they interrupt. You never ever interrupt. They're rude. They sit there tutting every time Rex says something. They make comments under their breath. All of that gets seen. Don't do any of that at all. It's bad. How to stand up for yourself and be counted. I was trying to think of the right wording to use there. You cannot let this just pass you by. You've got to deal with it. You've got to challenge it, and you've got to get rid of those false allegations. And you can do it. I'll show you how to do it. So the event, it is a live online course. So you join online and you've got the lecture or the course, however you want to view it. 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. That's UK time. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. You can adjust your clocks. You can be there between 10 o'clock until 4 o'clock. There will be a break for lunch and there will be some comfort breaks. Nobody can go for that long without needing to go to the loo. So there will be a couple of breaks. You can get a coffee, you can have your lunch, probably 30 minutes for lunch. And I will make sure that nobody is sitting there with their legs crossed. Access it from home, you can access it from work, you can access from wherever you need to access it from. You will get sample documents. I've talked about cross-examination. That will all be written down. Your closing submission, your statement, all of those things, the Scott schedule, case theory, all of those documents. If a document exists for it, you will get a sample of it. I will put all of those documents together as a court bundle, so you can see what a court bundle looks like. You'll have an example of a court bundle. When you go to court, you'll know how to put that bundle together because you can copy what I've done. Templates, some of the documents anyway, probably the majority of the documents, there's a template for them, and you can copy that copy the template, fill in your own details, and then you've got the document. There will be preparation exercises, so there will be allegations in there that I will tell you how we will deal with it. You will have a go at dealing with it. We'll talk about how we've dealt with it, so we can learn from that and understand how it all works. And questions and answers. As I've said, I say questions and answers. It isn't going to help to have a detailed examination on what happened in one particular case to one particular person. That doesn't help everybody. I'm looking general questions about this. I have a coaching course on challenging false allegations. It's an online course and it follows a load of modules. Between those modules, there is a conference call with me. So you will do a little bit of the work. We then talk about it. I coach you through that. You then move on to the next bit of work. The course at the moment is £840. You get £200 off that if you join this lecture. You will also get a free conference call with me. So I can talk to you either before the lecture or after the lecture, talk to you about whatever it is that you need to talk about for half an hour or so. I'm not necessarily that strict with a half an hour, but it's generally about half an hour. And you will get an access to a recording of the lecture. And you can access that whenever you need to. I have a community space on my website. You will have access to that community space and the lecture will be there. You can go into it whenever you need to go into it. So this is a lecture, 20th of June, on challenging false allegations. There are other lectures that I have. There's 7 or 8 of them actually. They will all be repeated through the year. So we've got challenging false allegations, followed by position statements, statements and evidence. So it's going to be a whole day. Again, how do you write these documents? They are so important. How do you use them? How do you make it all work for you? They're very important documents. I've got a whole day's lecture on that. It's the same situation or same format as this. It's 10 till 4, samples, document. Everything that applies here will apply there. Cross-examination and evidence. I go into far more detail than I will on this course. This course is going to tell you how to do it. But the cross-examination and evidence, again, it's a whole day. So I can't fit all of that into challenging false allegations. But you will have enough on this course to understand how that works. Challenging the Section 7 report. As with false allegations, if you have got a crappy Section 7 report, a bad report is biased, it's opinionated, it's making assumptions, you need to challenge it. Otherwise, it has a devastating effect on your relationship with your children, and nobody should get between you and your relationship with your children. There is also a mock hearing. I've done this before several times. there will be a hearing start to finish. We go through the whole process. You can take part in it, questions and answers, 10 o'clock until 4 o'clock, questions and answers. Everything that applies here will apply to that mock hearing. There is also a financial hearing. So if you're going to your FDA and your FDR, I was going to do them both separately, and then I realized actually you can get all of that in one day. This will take you through your whole financial case, start to finish, offers, statement, in fact not statements, there'll be position statements for hearings, all the documents, your Form E, everything you need to do and how the hearing will work, all in a one-day lecture. And then finally there will be one on Talata cases. If you are not married and you own property with your partner, you've separated, you need to use Talata. It's a trust of land and Appointment of Trustees Act. It will help unmarried people to get their share of a property, their financial share out of that property. So they are the courses that I have now. There will be other courses, other lectures that will come along. On my website, I have a whole range of coaching courses. I help people as a Mackenzie friend. Anything you need if you are representing yourself in court, I can help you with. Hopefully this is of interest. Book onto the course, and if this is on YouTube, there is a link below, and you will then be able to book on the course, and I will look forward to seeing you there. Thank you ever so much for listening.